During the Great Leap Forward in 1958, the Chinese Communist Party attempted to introduce public canteens in the countryside. However, this venture was short-lived, lasting only a few months. Now the party is revisiting this idea, championing the one canteen per village initiative in rural regions. Reports from May highlight that these canteens serve meals priced as low as 3 to 5 yuan, emphasizing their support. The People's Daily featured a headline on September 7th reading, "Let's go to the canteen." Analysts suggest that this move is the party's attempt to control the populace amidst socio-economic challenges, reminiscent of the canteens from the Great Leap Forward era. However, there are concerns as many villages are burdened with significant debt, potentially making this project unsustainable. Considering the recent ban on beggars in Guizhou province and the rollout of the one canteen per village initiative in Hunan province, some commentators warn that this might be a prelude to a second massive famine in China. Since Xi Jinping's ascent to power over a decade ago, he has been interfering in every aspect of the rural populace daily life. First, the government introduced toilet renovations for villages, but around 90% of these facilities are now reportedly abandoned. Then, there was a push for villages to construct biogas pits, but feedback indicates many of these have also been abandoned. Villagers were later discouraged from using traditional stoves and pushed towards using natural gas, which posed challenges for many. Now, with the introduction of the one canteen per village concept to address rural dining needs, the initiative feels like a step back in time. The experience of 1958 is well known. With unrestricted access to canteen food, the supply of food was quickly depleted, leading to a famine that claimed the lives of approximately 40 million Chinese citizens. Given these devastating consequences, 90% of the public remains skeptical about the one canteen per village initiative. Some commentators have voiced concerns predicting widespread famine if the initiative is rolled out extensively. Online, there's been a surge of sarcastic comments.
How can one possibly travel miles just for a meal? This gives local officials a new way to make money. Even if the canteen is cheap, it is still a burden for retirees like us with only a 130 yuan pension. After the cessation of community canteens, now they are starting rural ones. It seems like there's too much money with nowhere to spend.
In cities, the Chinese government had previously introduced community canteen during the pandemic, purportedly to address citizens' dining needs. However, these initiatives lasted only 3 months, and all canteens have now been shut down. The reasons are not hard to guess. The cost of rent, staffing, and other overheads made these ventures unprofitable, especially when they had to keep meal prices low for the sake of public welfare. Consequently, the quality of food couldn't be maintained, and these ventures soon went under, becoming unsuccessful. Charging the elderly 20 yuan for a meal is considered expensive by many urban old-age couples. For them, 20 yuan can cover home-cooked meals for a day. Dining in a canteen would double their daily meal expenses. Cooking at home and occasionally dining out offers a more appealing alternative. Why are Chinese people so resistant to collective canteen? This resistance ties directly to the nation's historical background and the modern values of its citizens. Firstly, the harrowing memories of the Great Famine in 1958 remain fresh in many minds. Despite the state's propaganda of ample food supplies and assurances of free canteens, when communes exhausted their food reserves by the end of that year, the promised governmental food supplies did not come as expected. As a result, numerous canteens ceased operations, leading to widespread starvation. Worse, policies at the time restricted peasants from leaving their areas to seek food, with some localities even positioning armed militia to prevent villagers from departing, further exacerbating the threat of hunger. A haunting story from Hunan tells of an old man who died during the 1960s famine, who asked his family to place a bowl of white rice outside the door on the anniversary of his death. He promised to return and feast upon it. This tale underscores the depth of suffering during the famine. Today, any mention of public canteens revives these historical traumas, eliciting a sensitive response from many Chinese people. But the pain points of history aren't solely about food scarcity. In 1958, to support public canteens, farmers' private assets, including stoves, utensils, and poultry, were seized. These left many entirely dependent on canteens, stripping them of choice. The canteen ran out of food, or if someone was at odds with village officials, it could leave some people without food. These oppressive controls starkly contrast with the freedom and choices modern Chinese citizens now seek. While the CCP's one canteen per village policy purports to care for the elderly in rural areas, the initiative seems impractical for many residing in these regions. Given the vastness of rural areas and their sparse population, many seniors might have to journey extensive distances just to eat. Moreover, concerns arise about the management of operations of these canteens. Reports suggest that village officials might oversee their construction and running. Whether they are competent in assuring the provision of healthy and sanitary meals remains a pressing question. Mr. Long, a resident of Beijing, observed.
In the Haitian district, I was at one of these canteens around 6 to 7 p.m. the previous day. It felt eerily quiet and represented a step backwards in thinking. There was no innovation, just an intent to control people's finances and diets. This isn't in line with a free market economy. I fear this could lead to soaring prices and shortages in food and essential supplies. This initiative might be unsustainable.
In one pilot area where there was a strong push to promote and encourage elderly residents to dine at these canteens, the outcome was disappointing. Only 3 seniors turned up for a meal. Some have even proposed sealing off home kitchens in the countryside, suggesting sending rural administrators to check for any smoking chimneys, in a bid to push villagers towards using these canteens. In response to this, a netizen commented,
If the canteen were genuinely free, everyone would be happy to use it. But when you provide the rural citizens with just 100 yuan a month and expect them to spend 360 yuan on canteen meals, they certainly won't be on board. Even if you dismantle their stoves, they won't yield, push too hard, and you might end up seeing the elderly lining up outside these canteens begging for food.
Some critics view the one canteen per village proposal as a lofty, unrealistic ambition, fearing it might end up just like many previously launched projects that lacked foresight, eventually becoming another one of Xi Jinping's unfinished initiatives. Such policy decisions, however, prompt deeper reflections. The US ambassador to Japan recently described some of Xi Jinping's political action as Machiavellian, often understood as strategic behavior but with a tendency towards self-interest. This raises a question.
Are Chinese decision-makers genuinely engaging in long-term, comprehensive strategic planning? If there was an overarching grand strategy behind everything, the current situation might look different. A nation that thinks systematically usually approaches decision-making with more caution and deliberation.
Despite the public's criticism on the one canteen per village policy, the CCP may have deeper intentions behind introducing it. Initially, this measure might be aimed at ensuring social stability. With the economy declining, the elderly population's quality of life is likely to suffer. As younger generations face reduced income, support for their aging parents dwindles. Pensions, which are already limited, may prove insufficient for sustaining life. In such circumstances, offering low-cost canteen meals costly merely 3 to 5 yuan can act as a relief for financially struggling households. Ensuring everyone is fed could consequently anchor social stability. More critically, such canteen might be perceived as emergency provisions under a wartime national structure. In emergencies, the market economy might falter, but a government-controlled canteen network ensures that society is continuously supplied with food. From this perspective, Xi Jinping might be anticipating and preparing for potential warfare or crisis, aiming to maintain national stability and societal order. This system ensures readiness in urgent times. Why would Xi Jinping insist on engaging in warfare? He might be aiming to equate himself with Mao Zedong historically, who was reputed for both his governance and military accomplishments. To surpass Mao in historical significance, Xi may need to demonstrate his military prowess, and to do so, a stable home front, facilitated by a vast canteen network, is vital. The initiation of a rural canteen system by the CCP also hints at the domestic economic downturn and potential food shortages. This might suggest possible foresight into a massive famine, reminiscent of the past events. In Guizhou, a poverty-stricken region in China, recent beggar prohibitions indicate an impending large-scale starvation. Begging for food represents the last resort for many to sustain themselves. Recollecting the 1960s 3-year famine, the Communist Party's decision to restrict peasants from leaving their village to beg for food resulted in numerous deaths from starvation within their homes and farmland. Begging for food is a last resort when all dignity is lost. It's a right, an individual right. In many impoverished nations from South America to Africa, beggars are common. Even in the US, daily encounters with those seeking assistance are not rare. It's a hallmark of human civilization to allow the vulnerable to beg, showing a side of humanity not seen in the animal kingdom, compassion. This compassion is crucial in society. There's an old tale of a wealthy landowner who had plentiful harvest annually. God told him to leave his crops near the roads for the destitute and wanderers to pick up for survival. This showcases a deep-rooted compassion in human society, an order we all call empathy because we belong to a human society. The news of Guizhou explicitly banning beggars is shocking. It's heart-wrenching. Today, China is pushing for national canteens, and Guizhou prohibits beggars. This might be the CCP's strategy, possibly wanting its citizens to experience hunger for some years. Reminiscent of Mao Zedong's era, he had let the Chinese people starve for more than 20 years, from 1949 when he came into power until 1976 when he died. Some commentators suggest Xi Jinping believes that the Chinese have been well fed in recent years and now it's time to endure hunger. This is Xi's thoughts, and there is no reasoning to it. After a cultural revolution, the CCP shifted its focus to the economy, leading to better days for the common people. But now, with the elites amassing wealth, they may want the population to continue in hardship, rendering them powerless to oppose the CCP. After Xi Jinping's era, they may shift focus back to the economy, ensuring the public remains grateful and under control. Democratic or free societies typically address the problem of feeding the poor through two means: food stamps to give people a choice to buy whatever they want to eat, or through religious and charitable organizations where they supply food at a very low price on fixed days or could be even free of charge for all. In China, controlling the food supply essentially means controlling basic life aspects. Those with even a modicum of power enjoy better standards of living and possibly other benefits. Even in the most difficult times, not only do they have food to eat, but they may also be able to use this power for other non-material benefits. For instance, chefs in collective canteens get first pick, ensuring they aren't hungry. They could leverage this privilege, possibly indulging in corrupt practices. Ordinary citizens might feel their survival threatened by these canteens, making them particularly sensitive to collective canteens. For Chinese peasants, the only variable strategy might be to unite against these collective canteens, drawing inspiration from brave actions like those of the Foxconn workers in Hunan. With unity and numbers, they can push back against oppressive forces, ensuring they don't starve in the future.